heart-shaped picnic basket. I don't know what's in there.
Do you want us to go look?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Looks early.
I like your nail costume.
Thanks.
Did you go to have them done?
No.
Like morning and night, you
No.
They said one thing they're allowed to have them done.
I chip them so quick. Actually, I did them 2 days ago, and I worked in the garden, and I did them yesterday, and I worked in the garden, and I did them again today.
Do you think you can fall you transplanted some of them irises into our garden that they grow up next year? Maybe in the fall, huh?
Yeah.
They are perennials.
Yep.
You have matches of them. They're gorgeous. They're gone by now.
Almost. We lost a lot of them.
Did you?
Hi, Mary. Hi, how you doing? I started going the wrong way.
In about 24 hours. Unless you're good at driving. No, so you just get out of the way.
Really,
You haven't hit anything yet.
Go to the roll cage? Yeah? Sure you get a roll cage.
We can't go through without getting on his camera, right?
I'm really hungry.
Hey, I'm a master gardener from the state of Connecticut. Does anyone here have that title? No, the only one here. What it means basically is I have a little bit more education in gardening, formal gardening. I still play around in the backyard, I still make mistakes and all of that, but basically it's a little bit more educated. I do a lot of volunteer work, mostly on the phone, sometimes with talks, answering problem questions, mostly blind work. Somebody calls in and says there's spots on my tomatoes. I have to try to figure out why there are spots and how to solve that problem. We also get lots of different kinds of problems, like I killed my lawn, how did I do it? So we have to do a lot of problem solving. But more recently, I've gone into another level, and that is a program called Sound Gardening, and it's gone beyond the gardening program into the environmental end of it. And that's been a big concern. There are 7 major watersheds in Connecticut. And all of those watersheds go directly into Long Island Sound. And all of what we do to our lawns and all of what we do to just about everything, the sides of our roads and everything, go directly into the watersheds, into the Sound. Because there have been so many problems, a new focus that we're looking at now is your backyard gardening. Because that is basically, it's about 25% of the pollution that's found in Long Island Sound. Half of that 25% is natural phenomena, which would be volcanoes, fish doo-doo, bird doo-doo, those kind of things, but it's also what we put in our ground, erosion, runoff, and things like that. So what I'm here just to give you some information about is your lawn care. This is going to do 2 things. One thing is hopefully, if people cooperate a little bit, it's going to reduce what's going into the Long Island Sound, into the rivers, into the environment. And number 2, it's going to save you money. It really is, because most of it is because we overdo it. Where should I start? I know. Let's we'll just do quick grass stuff. I think that's mostly what lawns are. The first thing that you want to do, either if you're starting a lawn or if you have a lawn, is to look at the environment and what it's in. Every plant has its own environment that it likes. There's 7 or 8 different major kinds of grasses, and for whatever environment your lawn is, you have a different kind of grass that really should kind of be there. Some of the more popular ones are your Kentucky bluegrasses, which is a finer blade of grass. Takes a lot more fertilizer to grow, and that likes a full sun. Then you have your fescues and your rye that are thinner grasses that take less times of work. We'll put it that way. You don't need to mow them quite so often and all of that. If you're going to start a new lawn, what you probably want to start with is a real good combination. If you look at your bags, you get a combination of all different kinds of grasses. That way you pretty much have it covered. If you're overseeding too, to get a bag of grass seed that has lots of different kind of combinations in it. If you're going to plant sod, you just start from scratch, from planting grass or from putting in a new lawn. You want to get a kind of grass that's pretty much compatible with the soil that you have. And then again, you don't have to put your fertilizer down. You don't have to do all that extra work. So those are some things that you might want to be aware of. Site selection. Now, this is where your major plants, your different kinds of grasses are real important. If you're going to buy grass, you want to look at the bag, at the back of the bag, and see if it's not only for sun or for shade, but what kind it is. That's real helpful. Fertilization, that's probably the biggest thing. Nitrogen is the first number on your bag. You're going to have 3 numbers on your bag, for those of you who fertilize your lawns. Nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Now we've got nitrogen, which is the first number on grass. On your grass fertilizers, it's the major thing that you need. Grass is called a monocot, and a monocot takes lots and lots of nitrogen. Corn is also a monocot, and those of you who have grown corn, you know that you need lots of stuff under there, or they're not going to grow. The Indians, way back when they grew corn, they would plant a fish under there, and that was a lot of the nitrogen. Well, nitrogen was also phosphorus and potassium, actually. It's a really good fertilizer to put under there. So when you go fishing, you don't eat your fish, you want to stick it into your corn crop. But it takes an awful lot of nitrogen to grow those. Your second one is your phosphorus, your second number. This is for your roots. Okay, so especially if you're planting bulbs, most people know that they get extra phosphorus and they put it under their bulbs. That's for your roots. You need a good root system for your grass, obviously, or you don't have a good top. Your third thing that you need is your potassium, which is for basically your disease resistancy. Not only can you get grasses with good disease resistancy in themselves, but you can also get the fertilizer that helps that. So those 3 numbers. What you want to do, got a lady bother me back there. What you want to do is get a not too high number of your nitrogen, and you're going to have a good crop. What do you want?
I've got a bottle of herring in my refrigerator that I'll never read.
Okay, let's see. We have, in herring, I would assume we have lots of salt.
And wine.
All right, okay, wine. Now, salt is one of the materials that was spread across the land in ancient Egypt to kill all the crops. So I'd say it's probably not a good idea. Vinegar might make it a little bit too acid. So probably not canned herring, I wouldn't want to use that. Or salted fish.
So if you use like potassium on your lawn, can you use a bunch of potassium, you don't have to use pesticides?
Well, if the healthier the lawn, it depends if you have a pest. That's the first thing. If you have a healthy lawn, chances are you're going to have less stuff in there, whether it's diseases or whether they're pests. So you definitely want to have as healthy a lawn as possible. If you are looking for weed control, you want to have the healthiest lawn as possible. You want a nice thick lawn. And if you have a nice thick lawn, then hopefully your weeds won't want to come up there because there won't be any space for them. Most weed seeds need sun to germinate. And so does your crabgrass too, that needs sun to germinate and it needs sun to grow. So if you have shade, you won't have crabgrass. So it's kind of a give or take situation. Yes?
I built a rock garden on a red clay bank. And over the last several years that I've been putting this thing together, I've gouged out more red clay and I've replaced it with a combination, with a mixture of red clay and compost. And I can't get anything to grow. What do you suppose is missing?
Where are you getting the compost from?
Compost is all of the weeds and stuff from the garden that I just throw on top. But the biggest concentration are leaves, including a lot of oak leaves.
If it's not broken down, is it broken down?
That's broken down pretty good.
One of the reasons that I would say there could be a problem is because you've got a lack of nitrogen. When you
the flowers don't seem to blossom. They stay green, they grow, but they don't seem to blossom.
Best thing is to have your soil tested.
Yep.
For $3 at the state of Connecticut, you can do it soil testing, tell you exactly what you need, exactly what to do. It'll ask you what types of plants you're growing. You fill that out, and it'll tell you exactly what you need to do for that particular type of plant. So it's all custom made, and for $3 you really can't get a better deal than that. Yes.
Station will do for nothing.
All right. right in Windsor,
Yeah.
on Uphill Road at the Experiment Station, which is a federal funded program. We work hand in hand too. Lots of different places that get things done. You just know that they're out there. The extension service that I volunteer for can be found in your yellow pages. I have some handouts here for people who might be interested in certain things. There are phone numbers in here too, and by all means call them. That's what they're there for. If you have any questions, you know, it's better to call somebody and ask them than not to. Okay, so now the best time to fertilize your lawn is May with a slow release fertilizer. There's all different kinds of fertilizers too. I don't want to get too technical with you, but you want to use a slow release fertilizer that kind of dissipates over a period of time. Then you want to go probably again in August, again with a slow release fertilizer, in November with a quick release fertilizer. It needs to get into that soil before it gets bound up by the frost. And then it's going to sit there and it's going to be ready in the springtime. You're going to have a nice lawn. Lots of lawn care companies want to come out 4 times a year. That's a lot of mowing. It's an awful lot of mowing. It costs you more if you have somebody doing your lawn, so it ends up to be a vicious circle. Your lawn doesn't need all that. It can't possibly use most of that nitrogen. Nitrogen is something that's not caught in the soil. It just goes right through. It goes into the groundwater. So that's one of the problems that we had. For watering, you want to do 1 inch a week. When you water, you should either water or not water. You don't want to do a ½ inch a week or a sprinkling on top because it looks good on the top. What you want to do is you're aiming for those roots underneath. To look for 1 inch of water, you put a cup if you're going to self-water. And underneath your watering system, whatever it may be, when that's 1 inch, you know you have 1 inch of water. It's pretty easy to figure out. Or when it puddles, too, then you know it's seeping down in there, too. So watering, if you water a little bit, that encourages root growth up on the top and not deep roots. Okay, so then you end up with something called thatch. And I walked around my yard today for a long time trying to find some thatch to show you, but my lawn is in such great condition. It's probably because I don't fertilize that I could just bring you this little piece of grass. It's because my husband. Okay. And now this is what part of my lawn looks like. I'm in the, I live in Suffield and I'm along the river, so this is a lot of riverbed clay. Well, this is topsoil on top, but we do have a lot of riverbed clay in our property. This is your soil, obviously your grass on top. In a lot of lawns, especially if you do a lot of stuff to your lawn, you put a lot of things on there, you would have brown stuff in here, which is dead roots and dead grasses and basically a mass tangle of stuff. Now your fertilizers can't get down there, so you can be putting down all kinds of things. It's not going to get past this layer, number 1. This is not a good thing to have. So the less you fertilize, actually, the healthier lawn you have. That's what my soil looks like, and I really apologize for not finding thatch. I'm sure lots of my neighbors have them, but I don't have any thatch. Okay, mowing. 2 to 2.5 inches. Again, it depends on your variety. Most people have Kentucky bluegrass. This is a sungrass. It's a thicker, greener kind of grass. That can go 2 to 3 inches. The more height you have in your grass, the more roots you have underneath the soil. Okay? So if you grow your grass short, there's no need for those roots to develop and to have a healthier lawn. So the taller you mow it, within reason, of course, the better the root system. Let's see, a sharp blade does 2 things. 1, it reduces your gas consumption on your lawnmower by about 25%. And 2, you don't get the jagged edges. There's lots and lots of diseases and insects just waiting to get into your lawn. Lawns are a monoculture, and for the right insects, it's like walking into a room full of hot fudge sundaes. You just can't resist it. They're all over the place, and this is what they want, so it's going to bring a lot of those critters and those diseases that really like to feed off of that particular substance. Also, if you're going to use your clippings, some people bag their clippings, and you're using herbicides, you don't want to use those clippings for mulch or in gardens or anything like that for at least 3 times. If you have a lawn service, there's a lot of stuff that goes in there, so you don't want to use those because it will go into the soil again and be taken up by your garden. I had a woman one time who called and she was very upset her whole garden died. She couldn't figure out what had happened to it. She had a lawn service doing the lawn, and they had stopped, and she was, her husband had started bagging the lawn droppings, and they had put them in the vegetable garden along the roads. Well, all those herbicides that were in there went into the crops that she was growing. So you don't think of things like that. So, yes?
I heard it in some way that, first of all, I heard that the gas needs to be aerated, that it needs to be good.
If you have thatch.
Yeah, you get that. And I heard that won't get to help the lawn is actually to wear golf shoes. It's like when you're mowing.
There's two rules of thought with that. One is that what it actually does is compacts the soil rather than an aerator will pull plugs out of the soil. So when you see your lawn afterwards, you see all these plugs of soil everywhere. If you wear the golf shoes, you're compacting the soil. Sure, stuff can get in there, but you're not really alleviating that particular problem. I've heard that too. Try it in a little area. Yes?
When you cut your grass and it's something like picking it up in a bag or a catcher, just let it go back onto your grass and recut it and let it go into it. Is that good for your grass?
Absolutely. That's the best thing you can do. One, with this thing about trying to reduce the landfill consumption, you know, that's certainly an issue. But grass is 90% water. It's only 10% other stuff. So when it goes back into the soil, back on top of the grass, most of it's going to decompose. Especially if you only cut 1/3 like you're supposed to. But that's the best thing to do, is to definitely let it go back on top.
You won't turn to thatch if you keep doing that.
No, a very healthy lawn has the right amount of microbes in it, the right amount of bacteria, and that will break it down. Again, there's only 10%. Basically, what a material is made out of, what a tree is made out of, the leaves that it drops are exactly the nutrients that that tree needs in the divine plan. So it has the nutrients that it needs. So now there's not a problem. Unless you have a lot of thatch, then you need to eliminate that problem. Compaction is another thing that those pads, you know, and that's where the weeds grow, on those pads that you walk. So that's one. Okay, I guess the main last thing I would like to talk about is grubs. A lot of people have lots and lots of questions. That seems to be one of the biggest questions that I have. What do I do to eliminate grubs? I just want to tell you about the cycle. First of all, grubs are hatched in June, okay? Then they're little larvae feeding on the top of your soil in probably mid-July to the end of August, anywhere in there. I mean, they don't all hatch June 14th. Probably mid-July to the end of August. That's when they're feeding. Then they go into a pupa stage, they go under the ground, and there they stay until the next year. And then they come out and they do their thing and they lay their eggs. So when you want to get them is when they're actively feeding, okay? You can spray all you want in the springtime and any other time of the year except for when they're actively feeding, then you're not going to do a lick of good. You're just going to be wasting your time and your money and the chemicals. So anywhere between, the recommendation now I think is mid-July through mid-June, June, next one, August, September, you know, then I can skip the whole one. So mostly in August is you want to spray. There's a few recommendations here on what to use. I'm not sure what the new one is, optional or not. All right.
What about wood chip?
Yeah, how do you say it? That's, yeah. Voles? Moles are there for the food source. The food source is grubs. You eliminate the food source and you eliminate the need for them to be there. We have cats and that seems to take care of that. Voles are a whole different story. They're vegetarians. Right.
We have them around here?
Yes. We have voles, and we have moles, and we have mice.
The mole eat the slugs?
No, I don't think anything eats slugs. Not even birds. We tried fish, we tried everything. Nothing eats slugs.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Let me tell you my experience with moles.
Moles? Okay.
You guys got a remedy for moles.
Woodchucks.
Okay, woodchuck. We need to hear this.
I used to admire them every year. They come up in the spring, and I used to watch them. They were beautiful. Then I discovered they were making holes all through the lawn.
Oh, big holes, right?
Yeah,
We have that too.
they have an escape hole. So I've been having them for years, but now I have no more moles, no more wood chucks.
Right.
Now what I did is, I started with, we have an embankment, sandy embankment going down to a little brook. And that's where they started. I bought gas, poured some gas and lit them up, put it, and looked for their outholes. Their outholes. Then, just for the start. Then I covered it with sand and dirt, covered the holes so they'd be gas, or most of them. You couldn't get them all.
Right.
Then I would take chicken wire and cover their entranceways and put twigs or logs on top of them. And if you keep doing that year after year, you get rid of them.
Declare war on them.
MADs, or whatever it works.
But there was no other method that I tried.
That's if you have control of your area.
Yeah.
There's some people that just, there's something that's beyond their control. You know, maybe somebody has a property, it may be a fence, it may be something. If you have control of it, but they have a backyard, definitely. Rabbits too.
Moles have bigger holes than small holes, right?
Moles have small holes.
And
They're only about
woodchucks-
this long.
And woodchucks have bigger.
But woodchucks, you can wrench your ankle.
Well, I was cutting the back of my lawn yesterday, and I don't know.
Big ones, yeah. So you have big mice.
And they cut through roots and stuff like that, they the ground,
Yeah.
chop them up.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I would say it's a woodchuck without seeing it.
Put some gasoline in there.
Take it home in a bed.
When you like your match. Any other questions, guys?
It seems like our woodchuck left.
Yeah.
They just seem to have moved out.
Anybody's gonna leave our house. So not gonna stay around.
Maybe harass him.
Well, if there are no, yes, Tim.
About the watering, is there, I read that best time of the day, early in the morning, to do it, as opposed to the evening.
Right. The reason for early in the morning is that the grass then has a chance to dry out. If you do it at night, you've got that moisture sitting there, you've got perfect conditions for a lot and lots of pathogens and diseases. It's amazing what the diseases are. The latest one, by the way, is not the latest one, but one of the biggest ones. People can't figure out what it is. If you have a female dog that leaves a beautiful brown spot all over the yard, if they go, and that's, so many have been brought in to identify this disease, and it's actually a dog. Definitely in the morning.
How does a person find out, I mean, how do you tell a rabbit person when you need to have your laundry patch? What are you looking for?
Pull out a plug like this, and if it has a half an inch of brown stuff right here, this is where your batch is.
So an average laundry patch from ever in so many years? Or?
I've never had mine done, and we've been there over 10 years. I've never needed to. It depends on your gardening practices. So there really is no specific time. Again, it's just looking at it. It's identification. You need to look at what's out there. If you think you have a problem, grab a shovel and you dig in that soil. And if you find 12 little curled up white things, you know that there's a problem that needs to be addressed. Or if you're walking across your lawn, probably about dusk, and all these little gray moths fly up around your feet, then you know that you probably have a problem. That's called the sod webworm, and they eat the base of your grasses. If you see little chink bugs walking around, you know, again, 1 or 2 is no problem, 5 or 10 is no problem. But when you get a lot of this kind of stuff, if you have a piece of lawn like this, and every week it grows bigger and bigger and bigger and brown, then you know that there's an issue that we need to deal with, like of course you don't want to mow.
In certain areas, like you have small ants, and they bring in like sand, or what they go in the ground and they bring up, whatever happens. But I do see some ants, and they build like little mountains.
And that's, you know, that's actually the area of the soil pretty good if you want to think positive. If you want to get rid of them. There are certain chemicals that you would need to do that. Again, you don't need to use the chemicals unless there's a problem. You don't need to just put it on the spring because it's springtime.
Okay. Very informative, huh? I got it. I guess there are plenty of handouts here that you can take a look at.
A little problem-solving book you make. You have a certain thing that you think you may want to look at.
We'll start our little tour now, if you'd like, those who would like. Otherwise, you can certainly go back under the shade. Just a short reminder, we won't be meeting again during the summer. We welcome your ideas, suggestions. I think now we're into what, our fourth year? This is the third year.
Must be full.
Must be fourth. It's probably fourth, yeah. I keep forgetting. It's the kind of group we want to keep going.